Hello.
All right. Hi, Jesse.
Hi. Got quarantine here.
Same.
Yeah. How are we doing this week?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. You guys get the puppy ready?
We did. We've had her for just over a week now.
Okay. And how'd that go?
Oh, wow. It's been good. She's smart. She's learns a lot every day, and then the next day she'll take 2 steps back but learn something else.
Yeah, it's puppy, so pretty standard.
Yeah, so it's been good.
Okay. Anything in this past week that you've seen that you have questions about?
Yeah, I think because the last time we met, we talked a little bit about the crate and potty training, and we had questions just of those things that came up. In her crate, she's not super excited for it. Like, she won't walk in by herself.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been like putting her in and then waiting for her to like lay down and relax, and then we'll close the door. A couple times though, she's just like absolutely refused, and she'll jump out and run, and then we got to put her back in. So I don't know the right way to put her into the crate or how to get her to. I mean, we've given her toys in there.
Yep.
I don't really know what to do.
Are you feeding her in the crate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she's only eating in the crate, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to already point out that there's some resistance there, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to assume that there's going to be a longer turnaround process to get her comfortable with the crate. Okay. Because of that resistance. When you put her in the crate, is it like just pick up and pop in, or do you push her in there? Do you use a leash to put her in there?
We pick her up and put her in.
Okay, so as silly as it sounds, a dog or puppy does not know how they got someplace when you place them in there, okay? Which can kind of induce more stress because there's like a disconnect. So you want her to actively go in herself. One thing I'll do with puppies is if you bring her to the entrance of the kennel, and you'll start to see them kind of pull back like this, that's already her saying nope, right? So I would push them and just keep applying pressure from behind until she pops in. Okay? And then I go to close the gate. She's probably going to throw a little fit, maybe paw it a little bit. Okay? I'm going to give you a couple of approaches here. I'm hoping that it's just, typical puppy stuff, but when I see resistance that early on, it's usually a pain in the butt. Okay. So once you pop her in there and she turns around, you close it. You're waiting for her to back off a little bit, and then you're slowly going to open. Okay. She might try to squirm through. If she does this, I close the kennel door on the puppy. Okay, I don't slam it, I close it and I catch and I start to just slowly apply that pressure. And what happens is the door, they get caught, right? And you're squeezing and squeezing, and eventually they start to, you'll kind of see her pull back like this. I let go of the pressure, and then she's going to detract into the kennel. Okay, and I'm going to close the gate. I'm going to wait a moment. Slowly open. She tries to sneak through again. Again, I catch with the gate, slowly pressure until I feel her squirm back, and then I release pressure. So what you're doing here is, with the resistance, for whatever reason that she doesn't like the kennel, despite the fact that it's only been a week or whatever, right, is she's not meant to be in there, right? She's meant to be free. She's meant to be out, hunting stuff, peeing and pooping and chewing tree bark and all that. She's not meant to be in the kennel. So where she's coming from isn't a bad place. So I always tell people, like, imagine if someone took you and then placed you in a room with no windows and closes the door and locks it. They go, like, how do you feel? Like, I'm gonna panic. Like, exactly. So in some cases with puppies, we can kind of get that same response. And this is going to sound kind of messed up, okay? But we're dealing with the dog here. So for her, you know, for whatever reason she's throwing the, like, I don't want to be in here move, is you have to teach her that her being out the kennel isn't a right, it's privilege. Okay, and the way we establish that is by aversives or a consequence. All right, so if she, you know, if we use, for instance, a prison or jail as an example, what happens if you try to escape? They got people up on posts, you know, with guns. You potentially get shot, right? So don't escape. So, you know, it sounds messed up, but we, you know, those people are meant to be kept in a confined area because they're a danger to society, right? So for the dog, it's kind of that same mentality of, it's like, you don't walk out of this kennel unless I say you can. And we start at 8 weeks, okay? Because if you try to ease her into the kennel, the soft approach will just make it harder in the later point, because she's going to go, you don't even mean it, right? You tried all this other stuff, you don't even mean it, and now you want to be a tough guy? No. Okay, so when we do this, the reason why we do the pressure is, whenever we do training, in my opinion, there has to be a balance between positive and negative. Okay, feeding her in the kennel is the positive. Her only getting food in the kennel, right, is to incentivize, hey, the kennel is a good place. It is where you eat, and it's where you only eat, right? So that we start to see her, when she sees the food bowl, wanting to go over there, and then even when there is no food bowl, she wants to go in there, right? Isolating certain rewards only for the kennel. So like, if you got her maybe a Kong with some like peanut butter or something, right? Or cream cheese or cottage cheese or whatever. She only gets that when she's in the kennel. Okay, so, but if it's only good things and never anything of like, okay, now you want to sneak out, well, here's an aversive, it's not going to mean anything, right? So that's how these things are going to work together. So when you put pressure, do not be taken aback or discouraged if you hear her yelp, okay? Since she's only 8 to 9 weeks, she may panic. It's okay, right? You're not going to make you're not creating psychological issues here. You're not going to create distress or anything like that. At least the stress that's going to be a permanent, lifelong issue, okay? Discipline is stressful, right? But what you're teaching here is, if you don't want to receive this correction, then don't try to escape the kennel and just accept it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you put the pressure, it's enough that it doesn't allow her to push forward, but enough to motivate her to think of something and move back, okay? And you might see her try to forge through the kennel, like pushing through the gate. I just increase that pressure, okay? If she gets out, no big deal. I'll grab the puppy and then bring them back in and then restart, okay? Because it's probably going to happen. I keep repeating that. And what you should start to see is, when you go to open that kennel, she's going to hang back. And over the course of a few days, you should start seeing her hanging back politely. Or she'll just stand in the back of the kennel and go, I'm not going to try to sneak out now. I'll wait for you to give me permission. Okay. The word that I use is break. Break means now you're free to come out. Okay. Very clear cut. When it comes to coming out the kennel, I don't say no or stop or It's just the gate. Okay. So that's to teach her to stop preventing or to prevent her from coming out. So she starts to perceive the kennel as, again, it's a privilege for her to come out and play and go out for a walk. Like, all those are privileges. If the dog thinks it's a right, then they can become demanding, and then they can start barking because they want to come out the kennel because they shouldn't be in the kennel. And that, it leads to behaviors like that. Separation anxiety, in my opinion, generally stems from dogs feeling like they have rights, right? So that when it goes against their rights, they're going to throw this big hissy fit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we've seen that.
Yeah, and it starts at 8 weeks. It starts even earlier than that.
Yeah.
You know, this is why when I come in the picture later, people already have all these issues because the puppy's learned a certain way of being. I'm like, oh, nobody put any discipline on the puppy. Now they've gone 2-3 months thinking that the world's their oyster, and we're gonna have to turn that all around. Okay. So, let's say you put her in the kennel, you get her to not forage or anything like that. Okay. And she's yipping her butt off. Has that happened yet?
Like when she's locked in it?
Uh-huh.
She's actually, at first she didn't cry at all. I think maybe in the last couple of days it's increased a little bit. She's only had one time where she's kind of yelped, but it doesn't last too long.
Okay. Keep an eye on that. As long as it goes down, you're good. It generally takes about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, for them to be like acclimated. And then I know when people get their puppies first, they're like, oh, they're so quiet and calm. It changes very quickly. Okay.
You already started to see that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not going to have your dog until she's maybe 1 year to 2 years old. So there's going to be a lot of shifts. The 6-month mark and the 1 year mark are the two most pivotal ones, especially with the pitty. Pitties, generally around 6 months is when we start to see reactivity or like bully type behaviors start to show themselves because they're coming into their own. Okay, so just to give you a heads up. But the stuff that you're doing here should help prevent those things, because when you raise them with discipline, it's not a free-for-all. Okay. If you start to notice her barking or yipping or anything like that start to escalate, okay, typically what I'll have people do at this stage is just ignore. Remember, before I think I talked about placing her in a room where she'd be the least audible, turning it towards the wall, draping it, and then just riding it out, right? But if we see it keeps going up or just stays static, okay, and after a couple of weeks, it needs to be addressed. Okay. So keep an eye on that. If everything's going fine, we won't worry about it. But I would just keep an eye on that. Okay. With the going in the kennel, you can also use her leash, and if you take the leash and just guide her, and your hand may end up going into the entrance of the kennel to get her to pop in, and then as soon as she walks in, you can give her a little treat. Okay, that's the positive side of getting her comfortable with going in the kennel. Okay, but there's two aspects to this. There's going in the kennel, and then there's staying in the kennel. Those are very different things, right? So a lot of people will say, Jesse, my dog goes in the kennel, no problem. But as soon as I lock the gate and leave the house, the dog's barking for hours, right? Because the staying in the kennel part is the hard part. The gate exercise that I told you about will help with that staying in the kennel part, because now what you're doing is you're teaching the puppy, just because I opened this gate does not mean you're going to come out. So it removes the meaning of the gate, because it's not on the puppy's terms, it's on your terms. So if my dogs were to be kenneled and I were to come home and open the gate and walk away, make a sandwich and eat dinner and come back, they'd still be in the kennel, because I never said you can come out. The door means nothing. Right? So just because there's access to it doesn't mean that the dog has access to it. It's like a kid. You know, just because there was cookies on the counter didn't mean I could have cookies. And if I try to take a cookie, I got spanked. Right? Very simple.
Yeah.
So, questions about that?
So how long, I mean, like once we open it back up and she just stays in there, how long do we wait before we actually close it and lock her in and leave?
I'm sorry, repeat that again.
So once we do the exercise and we open the gate and she stays in there, how long do we wait? Like how long does she need to stay before we close the gate and lock it and leave the room?
Oh, immediately.
Is that?
Immediately, okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, because all I want to see first is the puppy detract or at least move away from the gate. And you might even see her like move in the corner, kind of be like this. Like, what the hell was that? I want to see that. Yeah. Okay. Because it's caution. Like, do I really want to try to get out that gate right now? Right. And then once you see that, I'll close it and then walk away. Okay. And then see what happens after that.
Of the door, the opening of the crate door, and her just staying in there, that's something that will happen later, right?
And when we apply aversives to things, it should be a relatively quick like process, like days. This isn't weeks of stuff. Okay. If it looks as if it feels as if it's ineffective, it's because the correction is not to the degree that she needs for her personality type. Okay, every puppy is different. Some puppies, you just close it in front of their face and they're like, screw this, I'm never doing that again, right? Other puppies, and I'm thinking bully type, pit bull, bull terrier, German shepherd, Rottweiler, Cane Corso, like the powerful breeds, more confident breeds. A lot of people will turn around and they'll say, Jesse, like, my puppies are like stubborn. I'm like, yeah, because they're tougher than you think, because you're seeing puppy as opposed to personality. Okay, confidence, like, when they look at puppies, you can tell a dominant dog as a puppy. There's certain things that you can look for, and at that age, they're already thinking like they're already confident, kind of like an adult. So I started treating them that way from the get-go. Okay, and this all remains to be seen. Okay,
yeah.
But I'm because of the resistance aspect of it. Like most puppies will just pop in, no problem. The resistance is not common, so that's what I'm kind of thinking ahead on with this kind of process. Okay.
Okay.
Other questions?
So the potty training, one of the things we've been working on is getting her to walk outside by herself. There was beginning of the week, we'd open the kennel to take her outside and she wouldn't leave her room. And she got braver over the week and slowly came out of her room. But once or twice when we took her out, and she would run to a different room and then pee before we could get her out the door. The last 2 days, she's walked out most times by herself. But I was just curious if you had little corrections or some way to make that more consistent, that she walks outside by herself.
Always on a leash.
Okay.
Yeah, so as soon as you open that kennel, don't allow her to come out, right? So when you go to open it and she's trying to force through, like, correct, wait, clip the leash, wait again, because a lot of times dogs will learn, as soon as the leash is on, I can run out, right? So I'm prepared again, and then break and run her straight to the spot.
Okay.
So for puppies with other things like this, she's not doing anything technically bad, right?
Right.
It's not behavioral. It's just she's still getting acclimated. So you're building by putting her on a leash and running her straight to the yard, right? Is you're creating habit. And you do this for a few weeks. And with puppies, I'll have people do this for like the first couple of months, always on a leash, okay? Because they'll see the progress. Like, Jesse, my puppy's pulling me to the door. I'm like, awesome, but keep him on a leash. Because then one day the puppy will go to the door and go, I want to play chase, and run off to a different room and then pee on something and then start running around. Okay? So always on a leash. Okay.
She's very timid. Like, I mean, she's been slow to get used to different rooms, different settings. And we've put a collar and a leash on her a bit more, like the end of the week. She doesn't love walking on it. Like the second you put pressure on it, she just freaks out. Yep. And if you just stand there, like eventually she'll start moving. But is that okay if we're just standing and waiting for her to calm down and come towards us?
I just walk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just walk.
Oh, yeah.
Even if we're dragging her?
Yeah. But I would, yeah. Yeah. I know it sounds really bad, right? Dogs don't ease each other into life. It's life, right? Did I tell you the litter of puppies and the mother story?
I don't think so. So
there's a video, and I'm going to be doing YouTube videos analyzing videos of, like, just dogs in the wild and litters and stuff like that to, like, show people. But there's a video where there's a bunch of puppies and they're like 3 to 4 weeks with the mother, okay? And one of the puppies goes to nurse and the mother just bites the puppy. It runs away yelping, then comes back. She bites him again, runs away yelping. Then it comes back, bites it again, and then it runs away yelping and leaves her alone, okay? The owners, because it's the trainer, the owners, and then the dogs. One of the owners goes, oh, she's so mean, the puppy's hungry. And the trainer goes, yeah, she's trying to rest. she's going to rest. There was no, okay, like, I'm going to allow you to. It was just, I'm tired, leave me alone. There was no easing the puppy into life, right? The purpose of the video was actually to demonstrate a dominant puppy because it kept going back. Any other puppy would have been corrected once and walked away. This one took 3 times, right? That's something that we see that tells us where the personality type of the puppy is, right? The owners, because they felt bad, right? They couldn't help that emotional attachment stuff and go like, oh, but it just wants to eat. Remember, they don't nurse their weak puppies. If the puppy can't get to the nipple to nurse, they die. It sounds mean, but that's life, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying be mean to your puppy, and I'm not saying just go take off running. I'm just walking, right? And what you're seeing is what's called opposition reflex, okay? All it means is when a dog feels pressure, they go against pressure. So if you pull forward, they pull back. You pull back, they pull forward. You pull left, they pull right. You pull right, they pull left, okay? It's normal, especially with puppies because they're not meant to have something around their neck, right? So when I put the collar on the puppy, what I usually suggest is starting off in the yard, okay? So if you walk from the kennel to, the door to the backyard, one thing that I would anticipate is if I'm walking with the puppy and they put resistance, is because they're focused on the resistance, is that they might pee, okay? So if that's a thing, then I'll just pick up the puppy, walk them to the outside, pop them on the ground, and then walk them through the grass, right? So if they try to put the brakes on and they'll tumble, they'll like bob around and all that stuff. I'm very expressive. They'll bob around and eventually they go, this is uncomfortable, right? And they learn to go with the pressure. And then the puppy goes, oh, you mean if I just go with this little tug, nothing bad happens? And it was just me causing the problem? Oh, okay, then I'll just go with the pressure then. Okay. So in my opinion, it toughens puppies up because people, they shelter too much. And then later on, when life happens, then we start to get aggressive responses because the puppy doesn't know how to handle the stress, or the dog doesn't know how to handle the stress. So then it starts to use other means of handling stress, right? So putting her on the leash and walking is stressful. She has no idea what it is. I'm not holding that against her. I understand it. So I do it appropriately. I'm just walking, just slowly but forward so that she has to move. I'm not taking off running so that she's dragging on the ground, right? But at some point she's going to learn, because if you stop when she puts resistance, I've had dogs learn that if they don't want to do anything, they simply stop. And the next thing you know, you have a 2-year-old pit that doesn't want to walk because she's learned if she puts the brakes on, you won't move forward.
Right.
Okay. So you're just kind of teaching her, you're not going to get your way. You're not going to come out the kennel whenever you want. You're not going to be able to stop whatever you want just because you don't like it. Like, we're going to do this. And then she just learns to become compliant. Okay. If you see that it doesn't seem like it's getting better, okay, then we have to start looking at other approaches. And it's not that it's not working. I'm looking at the personality type. You happen to have a much more stubborn dog, not dominant, stubborn. Okay. Because there's a difference between dominant and like stubborn and stuff. And then what I call domineering. A dominant dog knows they're confident. Okay. A domineering dog is a dog who's gotten away with things and has won battles and arguments, and it's created a false confidence. So they start to become controlling because of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, dominant is a dog that knows it. They're confident. There's no doubt about it, right? But a lot of the dogs that I deal with have issues are domineering because people don't discipline them appropriately. They didn't push them when they were puppies. They didn't, they like kind of stop with them or like they remove them from the kennel because they threw such a fit. So they learned that they could get all these things with certain behaviors. So it creates that false confidence and they start pushing for other things. Okay.
Yeah, she doesn't seem very confident. She's definitely fairly timid and cautious.
And to build confidence, you push her through things, so like parachuting, right? I've never gone parachuting, but I would imagine the first time I go parachuting, I'm going to be super scared, not confident at all. But if I go parachuting on a regular basis, 2-3 times a week, I'm gonna get over that very quickly. And next thing you know, I'm jumping out the plane, no problem, right? Same thing for the puppy. If every time I put a leash on her, it's like we just walk. In the beginning, it's gonna be real bad, but ideally, it's easier and easier. And the puppy goes, oh, no big deal, I can get over this. I start building puppies up immediately, okay, as opposed to waiting. Because if you put on her time, it could be months. But by doing so, you're kind of reinforcing that timidness, okay? And when we build confidence, this is an unhealthy confidence. This is good confidence, handling stress and handling life, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, so leash and then just walk. If you find that the piddle happens, then leash, pick up, run her outside, put her where you want her in the grass, and then do your walking out there, and it'll work backwards. So first you'll only be able to do it in the yard, and next thing you know, you'll leash her in the kennel, and then she'll walk with you, no problem. Okay.
All right. One other question, and I probably know the answer to this, but when she's hanging out with us after she goes out, she's very vocal. Like, she likes to sit in the other room and whine or make little yips, or sometimes it's playful, sometimes she's looking for attention, and we've mostly been, we've been ignoring it, but it hasn't really changed at all. So do we continue to just ignore?
Yeah, I'd give it another week, and then plus we're adding that aversive now, so that's going to make a difference. Ideally, it's going to make a difference. It's because if you got her from a breeder, correct?
Yeah.
So she went from being with the litter of puppies and like a lot of activity, right, for the first 8 weeks of her life, to a house where now she has to acclimate to a 9 to 5 and being isolated and stuff like that. That it's not uncommon, right? So she can still, one, be acclimating, but also being so used to all this activity and then going to zero activity, essentially, or at least interaction, is where a lot of that stuff comes from. But that's why right away when I get the puppies, everybody always asks, like, when does training start? I'm like, day one. As soon as you bring them home, just start getting them acclimated to life, because they're more likely to bounce back now quickly than later.
Okay. It's funny, I wrote out a list of questions like at the beginning of the week, and things changed so quickly with her. But at first it seemed like she was dehydrated. We were giving her a cup of water a day, the 8 ounces, and then spreading that out over her 3 meals. But that was the first thing she went for. She finished it all. So I tried giving her more, which she drank, and we had 1 or 2 accidents. That seemed to go down a little bit now that she's fully transitioned onto her new food, now that, like, she's off the kibble she was on. But can we increase the amount at each meal, or do I need to stick to like 1 ounce per pound of her?
I play it by ear.
Okay.
So the ounce per pound is our general rule of thumb, right? And if you find that the puppy looks thirsty, you can give more water, but at least you're ahead. So now you know when the puppy had more water, so that you can plan for either having to take her out again, right? You can either throw in another potty break, or another water break in the interim between feedings, right? That's one way to kind of balance that out. Or if you give her more water at mealtime, when you run her out to potty, you have to watch for that. So when I take puppies out to potty, I watch how much they pee. Okay. If you see, and I know they're small, so they're like lower to the ground, so you really have to like watch. If the urine is clear and it stays clear as the dog is peeing, they still have more urine. When they hit the end of their bladder, it yellows out. Okay, so that's what I watch for. So if I've given more water and I see her take a piddle, and I go, okay, that was clear, I stay out there with her to see if she'll piddle again until I see yellow. If I don't, then I go, okay, well, you didn't pee. I don't think you peed completely, so I'm going to pop you in the kennel, planning that there's going to be a potty mistake, and then just take her out at another time. Okay. Yeah. Questions about that?
Nope.
And what is she on for food?
She's eating Akana kibble, and like 3/4 of her food is that, and then 1/4 is a freeze-dried raw, like primal nugget that we rehydrate.
Okay. With the Akana, do you have the bag still or no?
No.
Okay.
I have just the back of the bag. Like I took a picture of it.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
When you look and see what the protein percentage is,
Yeah. Um, 33%.
okay, yeah. So, did I talk about food last time and how it can dehydrate puppies?
Briefly, not in depth.
So, there's a bunch of brands that came out, and dog food has made some jumps in quality over the past 10 years. And there's a number of brands that I've come across that have are really good brands, are very high in protein. But what I found throughout the years is that they were dehydrating puppies. Okay. And I just found this out by accident because my stepdad and I had a total of 9 dogs. Okay. 3 were mine, 6 were his. And they were all potty trained for years. And we switched to a brand, it was called Instinct. And all of a sudden, the dogs were peeing in the house. And we couldn't figure out why. And then I had a bunch of puppy clients who were doing things by the book that were still having potty mistakes. And then finally, I was like, I think it's the food. And I switched back to my old food. My dog stopped peeing in the house. His dogs kept peeing in the house, right? Mm-hmm. And I looked at the foods and I noticed that his food was 33% protein, whereas mine was 24%, okay? And then when I started investigating with my clients and their dog or their puppies, I was like, what's your food? And it was usually Instinct, Prairie, From, I think Diamond, and Origin, were the 5 brands that I kept coming across. And the one commonality was they were high in protein, okay? Akana's up in that range. It's usually 28 to 35% protein that I've noticed that dehydrate puppies, okay? So Akana is a really good food. This is all by preference and then, seeing how things work out. But if you find that she continues to look dehydrated and you're struggling with potty mistakes, I think it's the Akana. Okay. When I've had my previous clients switch to a different brand, within the week, it was like night and day. They're like, Jesse, the potty mistakes went away. My puppy's not over drinking now. The reason is, for kibble, the binding process, they use some kind of sugar. Sugar dehydrates, right? Also, to break down protein, a byproduct is ammonia. So to flush out the ammonia, dogs drink more water to flush that out, right? So you have a couple of things there. In my theory, okay, I'm not a scientist, but that, when I've done my research, I'm like, this kind of makes sense, is what I feel like makes, is what's driving them to drink more water. So they're dehydrated and also to flush out the ammonia. So some puppies can handle it. It's super rare. It's super rare that they can. So it comes down to, if you want to keep her on the Akana, if we find this kind of, behavior persists, then we have to acclimate the potty breaks to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you want a recommendation for a different food, I would give it a couple of more weeks to see if her body kind of acclimates to it. But if it doesn't, there's a couple of brands that I recommend that are really good brands as well, that I've had really good success with puppies that were dehydrated from the previous kibble.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. That was all of my questions. I mean, I think everything's gone well. With her playing, she responds well to corrections. Yeah, I mean, she was very nippy at first. She'd lunge for your face or your hands when she played, but she does that a lot less now that she's been corrected.
Sure.
I think that my worry at first was she would bite or nip and you would try to correct her. and she thought you were playing with her.
Mhm.
So I just used more force, basically,
Sure.
and that seemed to work.
Yep. What are we using for correction? Is it the bonker?
No, the pet corrector.
Pet corrector.
Yeah, I mean, at first we just started with our own voice and like fingers to her neck.
Mm-hmm.
But the pet corrector has worked really well. She doesn't, the noise alone scares her.
Yeah.
Sure. So with corrections, and you were correct when you said that, you know, you were trying to correct her, it didn't work, and then you applied more force and then it stopped, right? That's how it works. You know, because you have a small puppy that's 9 weeks old, you have like an inhibitor because you don't want to hurt the puppy. It's normal. Everybody has this issue, okay? And typically what happens is when I work with most clients, I start them at one end of the spectrum and I work them through it to get them comfortable. Because then one day they're like, Jesse, the puppy bit the crap out of me the other day. I need an answer. I'm like, now you're ready for the real training. But now it's like validated. Because they're like, crap, yeah, the puppy bit the crap out of me and they didn't care. I'm like, yeah, they don't. Okay. So with the pet corrector, keep using it. And you don't want to threaten your dog, okay? And by threaten, I mean you don't want to threaten the correction and not follow through. You always just correct, okay? Because if she starts to learn that it's kind of like sometimes you correct me, sometimes you don't, you get a gambler, okay? And you want her to learn at this age, it's correction, and if you don't want to be corrected, don't do the behavior.
Mhm.
Right? Like that's how it works with humans, right? You don't want to go to jail, don't rob a bank. You don't want to get a ticket, don't run a red light, right? Same thing for the puppy. So as soon as you see something, ideally you always want to have that aversive on hand to address the puppy, okay? And this is what's going to make your life in the long run much easier because now she's easy. She's just what, 10, 14,
11 pounds maybe.
and she's going to grow to be 40 to 70.
Yeah, she'll probably be like 40, 45.
Yeah. Okay. So when you raise a puppy and you raise them with aversives and corrections and discipline, they grow up like a blank slate with this kind of perception of you, right? So for me, like my mom was super strict with me and raised me with very firm discipline growing up that as a 33-year-old man, if my mom were to tell me wash the dishes, I still wash the dishes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My brothers were not raised with the same level of discipline. She'll tell them to wash the dishes. They'll be there for days. Okay. It's funny, like these things are all around us. And if you pay attention, you're like, wow, like it makes sense, right? Because I just have this perception, like I can't go against my mom with certain things, right? Obviously with life and being an adult, like I could do that stuff. But if I'm in her home and she like tells me like wash the dishes, I'm like, all right, mom, I'll go wash the dishes, right? Same thing with the puppy, right? And I really stress this with power breeds because like when people get the Rottweilers and then I come in 2 years later and they have a 150-pound dog, I'm like, if this dog, if you try to correct them using physical force now, and you got a 150-pound dog that's going to argue with you, you're not going to win that argument. You're not, right? But if you raise them when they're these little, you know, chunky runts, and they grow up, they can't help, even though they don't know that they're like more powerful than you. The perception of you is just, okay, you're the alpha, you're your mom, your dad. I listen to you. Okay. So with the corrections, I know you said like was it like the Caesar Milan poke or whatever?
Yeah.
Did we talk about the bonker last week?
No.
Okay. So the bonker is another form of correction that you can use, and I will send you links to 3 videos. Okay, it's just a rolled up towel. You roll it, and then you use hair bands or rubber bands to keep it shape, and you use it to bonk the dog. That's where the name comes from. Okay, so it's much like the physical touch with your fingers, except you're using a rolled up towel. So it's firm but soft. Okay, so it's the same thing. So like, let's say she starts to outgrow the pet corrector, which can happen. Okay, as she toughens up. So like for me growing up, my mom used to spank me and it was effective. And then I got to a certain age where it wasn't effective. So then my dad started spanking me. Okay. And then that was effective, right? It had to escalate. Same thing for the puppy. So if you're using the pet corrector and you find like she's like, meh, that doesn't work anymore, then I use, you can use that. You can continue using hand touch because that's always physical. You can always increase the amount of force, right? And then the bonker is just another tool. Okay, and it's something like, let's say she's chewing on the corner of a table, you can also throw something. Okay, just be careful you don't break anything. And what I suggest is that you make a number of them. Make about 3 to 5. Okay, because what can happen the first time is when you go to correct your puppy, they'll take the whack and they'll go like, oh, what's this thing? And they'll pick it up and they'll start running around with it. Okay, it's funny, but then you have to teach the puppy that this isn't playtime, right? This is serious time. So what I have my clients do is they'll literally cycle through their bonkers as the puppy is trying to make a game of it. So like from experience, I was spanked, and when I started to outgrow it, right, in that transitioning phase, I was laughing. And my mom was like, oh, you're gonna laugh now, right? So she kept spanking me until it was not funny anymore. Okay, it's the same thing with the puppy. You bonk them, they think it's a game. I start cycling through the bonkers and the puppy goes, holy crap, this is not fun, this is not a game. And they start to perceive it as an aversive, which it should be. Okay. Right? And then once you get the point across, there really isn't no need to kind of keep repeating it in most cases, but you do so as necessary. So if you try to correct another time and the puppy tries to make it a game, I keep correcting it and make it not a game. Okay, so eventually the puppy learns the difference between, when you're in discipline mode and when you're in like affection mode. Okay, and I'll send you 3 videos. One is how to make one is how to use one, and then one is with a trainer actively using a bunker, and you will see the amount of force that he uses. It's firm, okay? And you're gonna see what looks like fearful behavior, okay? It's caution. You always need to see caution with any kind of behavior that you're trying to stop, because if there's no caution, then it means it didn't bother the dog, which means they'll most likely repeat the behavior again. Okay, and you can use this for chewing, nipping, barking at you, demanding attention, jumping on you. Anything that you want to stop and not see again is what aversives are meant for. Okay. Food is meant to build comfort, positive association with things like, going in the kennel, things like that. Things you want to see again, like if you say sit and she puts her butt down and you want her to do that again, you would give her a treat to kind of repeat that process, right? Or get her to learn to repeat that behavior until you get to more advanced training. So aversives are meant to stop things. Good things are meant for things that you want to see again, or things that you're trying to build comfort around. Okay. So that's why with the kennel, you're doing both. Like you're trying to build comfort and positive, get fed in here, here's treats and little training sessions. You only get this specific toy when you're in the kennel, never anytime else. And then if you try to sneak out, well, the gate's going to close. Right? So you're just balancing all your things out. Okay. And technically, we'll see how things progress. Like some people use the bonker for the kennel, which I play that by ear. I tried to just let the puppy get over it as much as possible, because even with some dogs, negative attention is still attention. So if you go if she's barking and you decide to bonk the kennel, and it doesn't make contact with her, right? Because she's shielded by the kennel. In some cases, the dog will learn like, well, if I bark, you'll come in the room. Even if they're throwing something at them, they'll like still bark. Right. Okay, so that's where things get a little tricky. Okay, but I'll send you videos so that you can see it, and it'll help you kind of get more comfortable with the idea of just physical consequence when you see how firm he corrects this puppy. Okay. Other questions?
We've seen that a little bit too, because she's not, when she thinks it's play, I think we've noticed that she's strong. It doesn't, she is. You can nail her harder than you think. And that's when she gets it of like, oh, okay, you're not joking.
Correct. And what you want to start keeping an eye out for is like, let's say you're like petting her, she starts to nip your hand, and you do the light correction, and then you pet again, she does it again, and you do the firmer one, and she stops the firmer one, then she's already telling me she needs the firmer one off the bat. People tend to do soft and firm. I do reverse. right? Once I learn the personality and I go, oh, you need firmer corrections, I don't do soft first anymore. I always do firm.
Okay.
Because you're trying to stop it from the get-go.
Okay.
Okay.
So if she's nipping at your hand, but she's, you know, being soft, is that a behavior that you don't want?
So I always go by preference, right? Because some people like it. I always advise not to, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't bother you, it's like whatever, right? But you want to think 40, 50-pound dog.
Right.
That if it goes unaddressed now, right? That it would become a behavior that she would learn and potentially carry out through her life. So I have a video that I made myself that I'll send to you. We're using the pet corrector. But what you would do is you have your, whatever tool you're going to use, your corrector, if you're going to use your hands, that's fine, or your bunkers ready, and you're petting her, okay? And I like to focus around the face, because then they'll start to put their mouth on you, right? So as I'm petting, if she puts her mouth on me, I keep my hand there. I do not remove it. I do not say anything. I simply pull out the corrector and correct, right? She removes her mouth. I go back to petting, okay? And I go back to the mouth again. She tries to do it again. I keep my hand in the mouth, correct her until she removes her mouth from my hand. It's very important that she removes her mouth. You do not remove your hand or the object, whether it's a toy or a ball, or like if she has your shoe. The dog must be made to surrender the object. I never remove the object from the dog, okay? Because when you remove the object and then you correct, you remove the context and they don't learn. So when you correct a dog or puppy, it has to happen as the behavior is happening, ideally. Okay. So for a human, if I did something like, let's say the day before I didn't wash the dishes, and the next day my mom said, I'm going to spank you because you didn't wash the dishes last night, I could tie those things together. Puppies don't do that, right? So even though it's just a moment where 1 second of you removing your hand before the correction, the puppy's not learning. So I keep it, let her do her thing, but immediately, as soon as I see the behavior, I'm applying that corrector immediately, okay? She removes herself and I go back to like nothing happened, okay? To get her over it. And I keep repeating. And what you'll start to see, when the puppy's registering not to bite you, they'll lick you. Okay, they'll start licking you because they're going, okay, I can't put my mouth on you. Just like with another dog, if she was nipping at another dog, they would bite her, and you would see her come back and start licking them. And she goes, okay, like I've learned not to bite you, but I'm non-threatening. And I go, if you don't mind your dog licking you, then you let it go. If you don't want the licking either, you can correct that as well. Okay. But yeah, you're always keeping the puppy in the context. So like, let's say she's chewing on the edge of a table and you go, no. And she looks at you and she walks away and then you go correct her, you've lost it. Right? So you would correct as she's chewing the table.
Okay.
You know, whether it's the bonker or if you use the spray. And when we deal with correcting behavior, you want to think, do I want to eliminate or do I want to control? Okay. When you want to eliminate, I never say anything. I just correct. Okay. So the way a dog's brain works is if you say something and then you apply the corrector, technically the puppy or dog can do the behavior until you apply the corrector. Right. So if she's chewing on something and you say no, and then you bonk or correct, she thinks, well, I can do this until I hear the word no. So then one day when you're not looking and you're in a different room, she's going to be chewing, and then you show up 15 minutes later, oh my God, you didn't, you know. So what you want to teach her is to not even think about doing the behavior. So if she's chewing on the table and all of a sudden a towel whacks her across the head and she goes, holy crap, I don't like that. She kind of looks around, maybe tries again, gets whacked again. She goes, oh, all right, well, if I don't want to get whacked, I'm just not going to chew the table. Then you don't have to worry about things like that, okay? So when it comes to controlling things with behaviors, it's typically like barking, like as she matures and finds her voice. There's the barking you're dealing with now is resistance. It's standard puppy training, kennel stuff, right? But 6 months to a year, when people knock, and hopefully when we can have visitors at that point, right? She might start barking. Somebody's here, right? And maybe she keeps barking and it starts becoming annoying or problematic. Well, you don't want to eliminate it because it's security, right? You'd want to control it. That's where a cue comes into play, right? You can bark until I tell you to cut it out, and then you have to quiet down, right? So whenever she does something, you just think to yourself, do I want to control this, or do I want to just not to do it, ideally? Okay. And it's typically like things like chewing, nipping, barking at you for attention. Barking in the kennel is one. Counter surfing. In some cases, some owners don't want the dog on the couch. You know, they're just trying to eliminate all those things that they just correct. So the puppy or dog learns, okay, if I don't want to be corrected, I simply just don't do these things. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, Sydney wanted me to tell you that she's coming down here to stay with us for a couple weeks with Doug. So it's gonna have a little
pity party.
friend. So
yeah.
Hopefully she'll learn some stuff from the bigger dog.
Yeah. So socialization is really critical right now. So definitely, I would say take advantage of that. Don't be surprised if she looks fearful. Which can be a very common puppy thing. How do you say? Like, let's say you introduce her to Doug and she's like hiding behind you or hiding behind furniture. To remove them, put them in the space, you know, where the discomfort is. So when I would teach puppy classes, there's usually one puppy that would be hiding underneath the owner's chair, and all the puppies would be in the middle playing, right? So I would tell the owner, take your puppy, plop them out in front of you, and don't let them hide behind your feet. And they would sit there, they'd be shaking, panting, you know, salivating, you know, under stress. And about 2 to 3 classes in, they would open up and they would start being playful. Okay, so if they're hiding and you allow that to happen, it's nothing bad really, right? But they're practicing the fear, which then becomes more of their personality if you allow them to practice it, right? By plopping them out, the puppy's still scared, but they're facing the fear, right? And at that point, they're so young that they recover quickly, that they kind of open up, and then the social aspect of them will come out, okay? So if you see that, and she's trying to hide behind things, that just take her, plop her out, and just keep her in the space as much as possible. And if Sydney's going to be there with you for a couple of weeks, I'd give it a couple of days that I would see her most likely turn around. If you don't see her turn around, that's super important to take note of, because that's a behavioral thing. That's genetics. Okay. Typically a couple of days should be more than enough for her to get over those things. But if Sydney's there for like a couple of weeks or whatever, that's plenty of time for the puppy to acclimate. That if they didn't, for me, that's a red flag. Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Not that I can think of right now.
In terms of like other training, like food stuff, so typically when I do puppies, the first 2 classes is this stuff. A lot of FYI, correcting puppies, potty training, crate training, you know, just any questions, right? Is with the food training stuff, have you done anything like sit or down or anything like that yet?
Yeah, I've seen one of your videos with like leading them with a treat and then getting her to sit or to lay.
Yep.
She's pretty good at that. She's so good that now sometimes when she smells a treat in front of her nose, she'll just lay down.
Sure.
So we've done that a little bit with her.
Okay, so I would suggest keep doing that stuff, okay? The sit, the down, the luring exercise, teaching her name. What's her name, by the way?
Remy.
You know, teaching her name, so Remy, and then like giving her a treat so she starts to associate that. Is all stuff you can start doing now. When it comes to food-based training, like you can even go on YouTube and like There's plenty of free, how do you say, positive reinforcement puppy training videos. There's tons of it out there, and you can't screw your dog up with it. Like it's just real basic, luring and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But you can start getting a foundation down. Start getting her to use that little brain of hers. Just prepping her for the future and stuff, so that whenever you find your trainer, you're going to do more advanced training. You've got a good foundation to jump from. And if you're stuck with anything, if you have a space where you can position your computer and I can observe, I can guide you through luring her to things, fixing issues like what you're dealing with there, like where she'll just lay down, right? Because that's what's going to get her the food. Working through that to teach her that there's more options than just laying down, right? Because what will happen is if you're always rewarding the same thing, they'll like literally only do that. And it's a pain in the butt to try to go back to teach her like, hey, look, there's other things that you could do that I'll reward you for. Okay. And I always tell people, think outside the envelope. If you like it, feed it. Right. So if you're trying to teach her to sit and she gives you her little paw, and you like it, you think it's cute, feed it. Right. And you could like, I even had a client teach their dog to sneeze on command. She had a little Yorkie, right? And I was like, if you like it, feed it. And she taught her Yorkie to sneeze because it was so cute. So it was sneezing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I always tell people, think outside the box. If she's a puppy right now, she's only going to be this big for so long. But do account that her training time or her food, is part of her caloric intake for the day. You can even use her kibble for the training if she likes it, or whatever her food is, so that you're not overfeeding.
Okay.
Or you can use treats as well. You just make sure to balance the diet out.
Okay.
Okay.
I need to do that.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't think so.
No.
I think that's helpful.
Okay. So for next class, I would plan for, again, have your questions ready.
Okay.
And then a setup where if we're going to do food training, that I can, just open space. And I recommend not feeding the morning of or the meal before your training session so that the puppy's hungry.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Oh, and do you guys have a clicker?
No.
No. They're like $2. If you go on Amazon, you don't need anything fancy. It's called you could look up dog training clicker.
Okay.
There's lots of different ones, if you want to get a fancy one, but typically they're like $2 is all, it's all you'll need. I suggest having one ready. It'll make life a little bit more simpler with the training. And then more clear for the puppy for learning. Okay.
Clicker?
Yeah.
Clicker. Yeah. All it does, it just makes you press a button and it makes a clicking sound. It's from Pavlov's dog. When they would ring the bell, the dog would salivate. You can mark a very specific moment with the sound to communicate like that's what I wanted, and she's going to associate it with food. So you're able to really kind of fine tune your training. Because with people and words, like you could use the word yes, but people tend to talk too much. So then say, yes, that's a good girl, good job, good sit, right? So there's all these words, so the puppy doesn't know which one to pull from.
Gotcha.
Right? But with the clicker, it's one very clear static sound that's not going to change.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Yep. So if anything else pops up, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we'll see you in a week or so. Okay?
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you so much, Jesse.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.